What's up, Gator Nation? Welcome into the latest Gators Online Show. Zach Albaverdi and Nick Del Toro here. And, we thought after last week, Nick, that we would get a month break from
Yeah.
football, not have much to talk about, maybe focus a little on hoops and baseball.
Dog, I'm just trying to chill and vibe to get the baseball season, and they won't let me.
It ain't happening. We've got, there's been some big stories with Florida football this week. I think three major stories. And we'll discuss all of them on today's episode. We will also preview the 2024 baseball season with Nick. We'll talk some hoops as well at the end of the show. But man, Nick, it's just this is the second time now going into spring, about a month out, that Billy is now having to hire a coach, and we'll get into that. But also the strength coach. There's another staffer that's leaving for another job. It's just I guess that's the world of college sports, and certainly the UF beat. A lot of staff changes.
Well, spin the wheel, Zach. Which one do you want to start with? It'll probably be a longer show today, but which one do you want to start with?
Well,
I mean, go chronologically.
Yeah, we'll get into the newest or the latest, should we say? As I was going in to literally get my haircut on Thursday, and then called Nick, and we had to get this news up, and obviously it's something that we had anticipated maybe this offseason, that one of the Gators offensive line coaches might leave for the NFL, but didn't think it would be this one. But we'll talk about the impact of that. Before we do that, Nick, we got a new sponsor that we want to kick off this week's show, and that is Florida Victorious.
Yeah, if you're tuned in to the Gators Online Show, the chances are you're already familiar with Florida Victorious, the proud NIL collective of the Florida Gators. The Florida Victorious crew is proudly sponsoring this year's Orange and Blue game, and they've set an ambitious goal to raise $250,000 for the Gator Defense Fund before that game. Donating to the Gator Defense Fund directly boosts the funds available for NIL opportunities. That means you can help keep Florida's best players right here at Florida where they belong. No more worrying about rivals swooping in to steal the Gator stars away. Investing in the Gator Defense Fund also positions Florida as an attractive destination for future Gators. It's all about securing Florida's place as a powerhouse in college athletics for years to come. Head on over to www.gatordefensefund.com to make your donation today. And Florida Victorious has been in the headlines too. So listen, the NIL, you like it, you don't like it, not going anywhere.
You would add that little bar there, Nick, for them to check that out as well.
There you go. Yeah, it's Gator Defense Fund, I think, is the current promotion to raise that $250,000 before the spring game. Today is Gator Giving Day, and I think that's more of a university thing than a Florida Victorious thing. As we've had Scott Strickland on the show before, and we've asked him a couple times, how do you handle asking money for both? I think Florida's got a lot of infrastructure things that they've addressed. And listen, the new age is NIL. I think we're seeing that across the landscape. It's not a Florida specific problem, issue.
Sure. And hearing recently from Freddie Wiebe, it's clear that they want to go out and get more corporate sponsors and take Florida Victorious to that level, where obviously all the fans, whether the ones that are contributing a lot or just the ones that are contributing the smallest amount, that helps a lot. But they also need to get more corporate sponsors and kind of get their message out there, especially in the state. And that's, I think you're going to be seeing a lot more Florida Victorious, not only on our show, but they're going to be sponsoring and making more appearances. And, with the previous collective, we had athletes on the show. We anticipate, doing that more moving forward. So shout out to Florida Victorious, everybody over there, Jen, and that's been putting in work and trying to get this thing headed in the right direction. And
and real quick, there's a perception that Florida Victorious doesn't have money. A story that came out, like, if they released player contracts to you, you would see that they have money and they're spending a lot of money. Even going back to talking with Eddie Rojas when he started the Gator Collective, yes, they do need the fans that are spending 10, 15, 25, $50 a month. And they will provide a product for people doing that, but that's not going to get you the DJ Lagways of the world to campus.
Yeah.
So I think the new direction they're going in, obviously, as Zach just said with Freddie, is focusing on corporate dollars. And listen, does somebody in the Tampa area see LJ McCray on an Ashley Furniture ad billboard and go, oh, shoot, I needed a couch. And it looks like Ashley Furniture is supporting the Gators. Maybe I'll buy my couch from Ashley instead of IKEA. I don't know. Listen, I just write essays on the internet.
Well,
I think that's the kind of corporate dollars they're looking
for. I think Freddie's got a little bit more bigger corporate sponsors maybe in mind than that. And
Ashley Furniture I have my beds from Ashley. It's very nice bed.
But and Nate has said before, and I know that he went on a podcast recently, the chief executive officer for Florida Victorious, he went on and said, hey, that the Gators are competitive in the NIL space. Are they the top collective out there in college athletics? No, but they're certainly doing enough to be able to sign football recruits like DJ Lagway and LJ McCray, and obviously keep all the guys for the most part on their roster and happy, and being able to do all the things that they're supposed to and have that check hit at the end of every month. And that's not been an issue whatsoever. And I just think that they're trying to get bigger and better. And and obviously you want to get to a Gator Defense Fund where you've got a lot to offer financially.
Yeah.
So,
and it's not and listen, it's not just football. I talked to Kevin O'Sullivan will tell you, we need money to compete.
Yeah.
It's not just football. Football's numbers might be bigger. But also look, like we joke, Portal God Todd.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't be, if he didn't
I don't know that all of the guys Todd got from the portal just grew up lifelong Gator fans.
No, I mean, you're not getting Zion. I mean, Zion pulling. Look at some of the schools that he picked Florida over, and obviously Walter Clayton, all these guys that they added from the portal that are making an impact. If your NIL is not in a good place, you're not getting that roster. Just point blank, period. So, and we're seeing the benefits from that. So. But shout out to Florida Victorious, a new sponsor for the Gators Online Show. And with that, we'll move into the news of Thursday. One of a couple staff changes that we learned about on Thursday, but the major one is Darnell Stapleton being hired by the Washington Commanders as assistant offensive line coach. And it's a move, Nick, that fans had been wondering if the Gators would have two O-line coaches moving forward. And I was always under the impression and thought that, Rob Sale could and get the opportunity to move to the NFL already coming from the Giants and might want to take it, just where the game is headed. But instead it's Darnell Stapleton who gets the first crack at it, at least after this season. And right now he's already on Washington website as an official staff member and was announced on Thursday. So that leaves the Gators now with an opening, and we can get into what Billy might do with that. But just let's talk about the impact of Darnell leaving the staff first.
Yeah, it will be interesting just because of the time frame. Florida is what I think just over 3 weeks from starting spring camp.
Yeah, it's just deja vu.
Yeah, it's the college football calendar and the NFL calendar don't mix. So NFL teams, the Super Bowl just happened. So NFL teams are finishing out interviews and all the head coaches are in place, but now those head coaches have to fill out their staffs. And as colleges are getting into the thick of their winter workouts and preparing for spring, and I continue to say this, the college calendar for coaches is terrible, awful. You're recruiting high school from freshman to senior. You're dealing with NIL. You're dealing with the transfer portal. What guys do we need to get? What's my room look like? What guys can we go get in the portal? Also, I like these guys in my room. Now I'm trying to keep them. So once I recruit you and sign you, I used to be like, hey, man, you're on the team. We'll move on. You're re-recruiting your roster. The NCAA is not policing multi-transfers. So it's not even like we got a guy in from the portal. Now he's here. He can't leave until he graduates. They can leave every year. You could Zach Albaverdi, quarterback, 5-star, 7-star quarterback, Zach Albaverdi could play for 4 different colleges and not have to sit out a year in a 4-year span.
Nick has seen my arm. I could do it.
1-star quarterback, Zach Albaverdi.
That's why I'm transferring so much.
Yeah. Looking for a spot to play. It's just the quality of life is bad. And Richard Johnson, friend of ours, I talked to him and he was telling me a story, and I'll share because he shared it on his podcast as well. He was having lunch with a former college coach, and they're just talking, and he asked, what's the difference? Because that coach was now in the NFL. What's the difference between college and the NFL? And the coach pointed to his cell phone and said, this hasn't rung in 30 minutes. We've been able to have a meal together. Zach, you and I were in the building talking to a staffer for 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe, and the phone lit up three different times. Like the quality of life from being a coach in the NFL, which is just watching film, coaching football, and the quality of life for a college coach, which is all the things I just said, vastly different. And you're going to continue to see good college coaches who have the opportunity to go to the NFL jump at that until the NCAA, the Power 2, because listen, it's not Power 5, it's the Big Ten, the SEC, and everyone else, until they figure out NIL, transfer portal windows, and get a hold on this calendar. You're going to continue to see good coaches, which I think Darnell Stapleton's a good coach, leave for the NFL.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something we need to address too, Nick, because let's be honest. There are a lot of fans out there that are happy about this news, and not necessarily because of Darnell, but because of Florida having 2 O-line coaches on staff and that whole thing, because it opens up a spot to maybe add somebody else. But for the folks that are happy because they were under the impression that he's not a good coach, well, this clearly, debunks that. Like, Dan Quinn is not hiring him as one of his coaches on staff in the NFL. He's not legit. This is the guy that started and won a Super Bowl with the Steelers and has been a coach for several years. So he was liked by recruits. There was a reason why he was extended by Billy, and there's a reason why he got hired by Dan Quinn. Now, if you're a fan that wanted to see a change there because you don't like the fact that Florida has 2 O-line coaches, or you wanted to see some staff shakeup on that side of the ball and maybe have the opportunity to bring in a play caller if one of the 2 offensive line coaches leave, that I get. That makes a bunch of sense. But Darnell obviously, was on staff for a reason, is now going to be on Quinn's staff for a reason, and was extended for a reason. What's going to be very interesting now, Nick, is what does Billy do? Does he double down and hire another offensive line coach just to say, you know what, this is what I'm doing? Does he hire a quarterbacks coach? Does he hire someone that's just a play caller? Does it happen before or after spring? These are a lot of questions that we don't know answers to yet.
Yeah, there's a number of ways you can go. Do you make Ryan O'Hara, who I think is a guy who will eventually be an on-field coach somewhere? Do you make him an on-field coach? That too, to me, doesn't seem like the move you would make, because then you have 2 on-field quarterback coaches with Billy and Ryan.
Well, then maybe Billy now is no longer the quarterback's coach and he's just the play caller, Nick. He gets to focus even more on the game planning. I mean, I didn't say it, but I would not rule that out. Him just getting named quarterback's coach and freeing Billy up even more.
Yeah, the only thing I go back to is the importance that Billy Napier has stressed having 2 offensive line coaches to be. He's made mention of, why don't you have 2 offensive line coaches? You have, in a lot of places, an offensive line coach or a defensive line coach, a linebackers coach, and an outside linebackers coach, which Florida has, because it's very different players, a lot of players in the position. Why don't you have two guys coaching the secondary in a lot of places? Because it's a lot of people. I think he thinks it's very important. I made the argument on the Andy Staples show. I don't know that Florida's offensive line was even good their first year. I think you had a quarterback who an 8-year-old would create in Madden at 6'4", 245 pounds, that runs as fast as Anthony Richardson does. That's a nightmare to tackle and to sack, and one All-American, unanimous All-American. And that made the offensive line look really good. And once you took away the quarterback, who's very hard to sack, the sack numbers went up. So I don't know that we've seen, certainly not from a recruiting standpoint, after you and I got into our battle last week on that. I don't think you've seen the benefits from a recruiting stars standpoint. And I'm not a huge stars guy, but from a stars standpoint or from a production standpoint. And I would give a lot of credit to Anthony Richardson just being very hard to sack.
I'm not going to debate you on that, Nick.
But it's clear. I say all that just to say that, like, it's clear that Billy Napier puts a lot of emphasis and thinks it's very important to have two offensive line coaches. So do I think that he would just say, now listen, last year you had Kerry Colbert leave, and David Decker did a really good job in spring. And that's probably an invaluable time for him to run that room for spring. And then you bring in Billy Gonzalez, and that changes. So with so little time before spring, do you make a full-time hire? I don't think it's in Billy's nature to rush to make a hire. And this is something that, listen, Dan Quinn has not been the head coach of the Commanders for very long. This was something very new that happened. Florida had plans to go into spring practice with Darnell Stapleton and Rob Sale. So I don't know that it's in Billy's nature to rush a hire just to have someone in place for spring. And it would probably make more sense if I'm trying to figure out what will Florida do before the spring to promote somebody on staff until you can make a hire that you feel good about long term.
Some of the guys that you just mentioned made me think of something, Nick. Just in the way that Billy could structure his staff, if he makes the decision to promote Ryan O'Hara, which I think is a strong possibility, the role that O'Hara has been serving in that analyst role, where he's obviously still involved at that position, is having an impact, has a recruiting impact, but he just doesn't count as one of the 10 coaches. In the same way that David Decker coaches the wide receivers group, is very involved there. And I know there's different titles and roles. We'll get into the special teams and how they have different guys working in those capacities. Billy could theoretically, if he promotes O'Hara, still find somebody to coach on that offensive line, but just not count as one of the 10 coaches, but he still has two offensive line coaches.
Watch out for your dry snitching, Zach, because Florida definitely doesn't have analysts coaching on the field in a role that they shouldn't be doing per NCAA rules. So that's not something they would do.
Sure. Well, the analyst would, he'd have to work within those rules. But, can you have that guy serve as the other offensive line coach, even though he's, doesn't count as one of the 10 and get away with it that way? Or do you want one of those 10 coaches to be an offensive line coach, no ifs, ands, or buts, and you're just going to make that hire before the spring, or you're going to get through spring ball and then do that after the fact? We'll find out. But it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays. And Nick, we got more coaching to track. With the hirings with this offseason. It has not stopped.
I remember I was listening to a couple some national shows talking about Florida, and they were talking about the perception. It brought me back to my tweet, which people inside the building didn't like, about the Perception Bowl. Florida football is battling perception right now. And I think a lot of maybe people just look at it and they're like, oh, the rats jumping off a sinking ship is what I saw on Twitter. And I think going to the NFL for all of the reasons I just stated is, first off, going to the NFL is an upgrade. That's the highest level of football. If you can coach the NFL, that is a higher level than any college program. So Darnell Stapleton, this isn't to quote Dan Mullen, a lateral move. This is an upgrade. Craig Fitzgerald, the strength coach of 5 weeks, when he left, some people, specifically rivals, are clowning Florida. Also, don't help rivals troll you. Don't lean into that. There was no way for me to massage that headline to make it anything than it was. Like, a coach left for Florida for Boston College. Strength coaches are essentially like the head coaches of the team for 6, 7, 8 months of the year based on what coaches, on-field coaches, can do. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, if Urban Meyer came back to coach New Mexico State, Mickey Marotti would leave Ohio State to go coach New Mexico State with Urban Meyer. That's the relationships strength coaches have. So when Bill O'Brien got hired at Boston College, he went to his guy. Craig Fitzgerald and him coached at Maryland together. When Bill O'Brien became the head coach at Penn State, he grabbed Fitzgerald to be his strength coach. When he moved to Houston, he took Craig Fitzgerald with him from college to the NFL because that's his guy. So when Bill O'Brien became a head coach, he called his guy to come. Yes, the headline sucks. The timing, the headline sucks. There's no way to massage that. It's Florida loses a guy to Boston College. But if you just click the link and read it with a level head, it makes sense. Craig Fitzgerald went to be with his guy. And if Bill O'Brien doesn't get a head coaching job, Craig Fitzgerald is leading the identity phase of winter workouts right now. But that's just not what happened. But listen, I get it. The headline's tough.
Very tough. Very tough. We're going to get a lot into Fitzgerald and the impact of that next. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to My Perfect Franchise. If you're ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, looking for a side hustle while working your current job, or wanting to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy, Andy can help. Andy is a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, financial requirements, time to commit, and more. His services are 100% free, and he's here to help if you have any questions about business ownership. You can learn more and contact Andy anytime at myperfectfranchise.net or calling or texting him at 404-973-9901. Nick, if you could have any franchise, what would it be?
Let's see. It would be Moe's. I was trying to think back, like, what could I have gotten in, like, the ground floor? Like, if I could have been, like, ground floor, immediately started with McDonald's when they first started. But then you know, you wouldn't be here listening to me chop it up with Zach on the podcast. But it would definitely be a Moe's. Shout out to Moe's. Moe's fan forever.
If they try to open up a Moe's next to Nick's house, folks, we may be out of luck in the
I would franchise. I would do Lululemon just to get free clothes.
Of course, you could just do live shows from. You could just pod from Moe's.
Just pod from Moe's. That they would, the booming "Welcome to Moe's" would be the background noise of the podcast.
Well, if you've had your sight set on potentially owning a franchise, hit up Andy, and he might be able to find one for you. And the Gators found their new strength coach, Nick. They completed the first phase of their off-season workouts. They were scheduled to start phase 2 on Monday, and there was a new strength coach leading it. Because as we've talked about, Fitzgerald is on his way already, probably there in Boston College, and what you felt like you had fixed or improved, you now got to resolve that problem. And it doesn't appear that Napier is going to go backwards. And even though hockey is still on staff, that's not a direction that they're going to go back towards. I think they want to move forward, whether that is with somebody on staff, which we'll get into, or whether he makes a hire from one of the other interviews candidates that he interviewed, which we'll get into, or he needs to go find somebody completely new. Billy is now also tasked with having to make that decision, along with filling his 10th assistant coach. So right now, Tyler Miles is leading the team through the identity phase. And why this is important, Nick, is because obviously he was there with Mark Hockey. He runs kind of the sports science aspect of the strength and conditioning program, but he was also, and I'll get into this in Zach's mail stack this week in more detail, but let's just say he was involved in the planning of this program that they're running right now. So it's not like the example I used with somebody the other day. It's not like in Waterboy where the guy ran away with the green notebook and the coach has no idea what to do now. Like Tyler Miles has the blueprint for exactly what Fitzgerald was going to be doing. Now he's not Craig Fitzgerald though, so and he's never been the head strength coach for a program of this magnitude, but he's worked at programs of as big as Florida, and he spent a month with Fitzgerald, seeing exactly what he implemented and maybe why those changes were effective, having seen hockey's program. So he's got a unique perspective, and I think at least for the time being, him being the head strength coach on an interim basis, the Gators are going to get through this next month and this next phase. Okay.
Yeah, he Tyler Miles interned with the Jets in 2018-19. He interned at Northwestern State, Tennessee, and South Carolina. I think he also worked as the head strength coach at Tennessee State. And then, like you said, was at Duke and has been at Florida
in
going
Miami
into his second year. So I think the familiar with the timing of it, not ideal. With the timing of it, I think it's makes sense to go with him. I've had sources tell me that players lobbied for Tyler to get the job when Mark Hockey was being moved into his new role, whatever that is.
Director of Player Development.
Sure. Interesting titles all throughout the building. I don't know what Billy will do. Do you hand it to Tyler? Do you go back through that Rolodex, that list that you had and circle back to somebody? That's an awkward conversation to have. But it's still the University of Florida, and it's still a job, even if you are now being circled back to clearly as not the number one pick. It's still the University of Florida, and it's still a great resume builder, a great stop to be at. It will be interesting to see what they do.
Because to be clear, he hired other guys for the job, not just Craig Fitzgerald, and he's already vetted them. He can easily pick up the phone and call one of those guys. But yeah, to Nick's point, are they in a position? Are they in a job? Are they in a point in their career where they take that Florida opportunity no matter what? Or are they well off where they're at and maybe feel some type of way about not getting the job the first time around? You know how some coaches are. There's egos
and quite frankly, going back to that perception, like what is the perception of people outside of the program looking from the outside in, being like, I would move from an assistant to a head coach or head strength coach, but would I also be looking for a job this time next year? And maybe if I just stay here, this opportunity will come up at another school like that. So it's interesting. There is never a dull day covering the Florida Gators football program.
One thing that I think is worth noting here is the addition of Jake Sankel. I can't imagine that he will be in the mix to be promoted to head strength coach, given the fact that he is the director of football nutrition already. However, he is also assistant strength coach. And when I say he's assistant strength coach, he is out there just as much as all the other strength coaches. He is very involved in the workouts. he's, much more. I think the relationship with the players is just different, obviously, because of that. And I think his background and expertise coming from the Commanders, who just poached one of Florida's assistant coaches. But I mean, he spent, was it 7 or 8 seasons there, Nick? And I mean, the guy was an NFL strength coach that entire time, along with being a nutritionist. So you're getting a lot there in his role. And I think between him and Tyler and the other strength coaches on staff, Florida's going to be able to be fine until Billy makes a decision on what he wants to do. But I think it's very, very important, in hindsight, that Sankel was the addition that Billy made as the nutritionist, and the fact that he's also a strength coach, because being able to have him in that role right now when you're down a guy, it's a pretty big deal. And then the fact that he was an NFL strength coach, he's got that expertise. So it's, again, never ideal to lose your strength coach a month into the offseason workouts, but Florida staff could be in a worse off place. And again, that's also with not even involving hockey in the workouts currently, who was the strength coach before. That's another head in the building. So it's going to be interesting to see what Billy does. And again, he's going to be having to make 2 hires, right now. So also another one that he has to replace, that Nick just wrote about at GatorsOnline.com. And we'll get into that real quick. And Gators fans might see this story and like, oh no, did we lose another coach? No, Florida did not lose their new special teams coach, Houston, that they just hired over from the New England Patriots. They are losing Brandon Taylor, who has been a graduate assistant with the Gators. And you might ask, well, why are we talking or writing about a graduate assistant leaving, as he's getting a job with West Georgia, and obviously will now be a full-time coach, because he will be outside linebackers coach as well as special teams coordinator. But the reason why Taylor's departure and obviously his role on staff is significant is because he took on more duties during last season as Napier kind of shuffled his staff and the special teams responsibilities. And it was very obvious, obviously, during the games that he was much more involved. So don't know how the addition of Houston was going to change his role, but at the very least, he was part of that special teams operation and had a hand in it. And now that's somebody that's gone. So more attrition.
And that's gonna happen because he was a graduate.
Yes.
A graduate assistant, kind of like Callie James was a graduate assistant. And listen, unless you're taking classes, graduate level classes, you cannot be a graduate assistant. So it's either.
But you can coach though when you are doing it. So
you can coach when you're a graduate assistant, yes. Which is what you saw him doing. You know, if you're in the stadium and watching Florida sidelines on 3rd and 10, you would see Brandon Taylor coaching. But applause for him. Congratulations to him. Yeah. You're getting your first opportunity to be an on-field coach. The University of West Georgia Wolves. Go Wolves.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Shout out to Brandon on that opportunity. And before we switch gears here, want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Prairie Dental Center. Doctor is a UF grad who's practiced in Gainesville for 3 decades and has developed a deep understanding of how to diagnose and treat various dental problems, along with advanced skills and knowledge to provide more effective and efficient care to his patients. If you're having dental concerns or you just need a cleaning, Prairie Dental Center offers a wide range of options to meet your needs. Give their office a call at 352-373-3431. Tell them Gators Online sent you, and your new patient exam will be free. Well, Nick, we can change topics here because we actually got some baseball to talk about. You've been out at the scrimmages, out at the practices. We've got some press conferences this week. You broke some news. Obviously, that came out after our last show, which is the extension of Kevin O'Sullivan, which is obviously big news for the Gators, and first reported by Nick at Gators Online. What's your thoughts kind of on that? Is that something that they can kind of kick off the season with, knowing that they got him locked up for several more years?
Yeah, this was shoot. I mean, I've been following this story since I think like October, November. And I've been I've been covering Florida baseball since 2014. For a full season. So when I hear like the terms of it, I'm like, this is going to be the last chance I have to break Kevin O'Sullivan's contract extension, because at the length of the time that they're talking about, he's not going to sign another one. Like, this is, I think you're going to get Kevin O'Sullivan until 2033. He'll be in his mid 60s. And I think he's more than happy to listen. Like, if he's 64 years old and still has the fire and the passion to do it, he might re-up again. But I think he, even in his statement that he gave to Gators Online before we broke it, was I started my career here and I'm going to have a chance to end it here. So Florida since 2014, not going to say it's me, but it might not be me, has won more games since 2014 than any other Division I baseball program. The reason for that is Kevin O'Sullivan, Chuck Girolamo.
You mean not Nick Del Torre?
I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't me, but
you're just giving credit where it's due.
You know, I'm humble guy, always have been. So it's a credit to him. It's also a credit to the players, but the coaches have to get the players to campus. And in baseball, that's different than football, because you're not only recruiting against, in baseball, Vanderbilt and Alabama and Texas and Oklahoma, you're also recruiting against the Major League Draft, which has had NIL before NIL was a thing. They offer lots of money to go play pro sports. So for Florida, it provides stability. I remember going back to when Texas had an opening, that Kevin O'Sullivan was going to be the guy. Going back to, I forget what year it was, 2016, 17, 18, 19, whatever it was, when South Carolina had a job before Kingston got it. And South Carolina was telling me it was going to be Kevin O'Sullivan. And then LSU's job was opening, and Kevin O'Sullivan was going to leave, go to LSU. I think this puts all of that to rest. He is second in pay, only to Tim Corbin at Vanderbilt, and Kevin O'Sullivan will be the head coach for Florida until he's done coaching baseball.
Yeah, well, congrats to Sully, as they call him, and it was cool the other day in the O-Dome when Anthony Richardson got a standing ovation from the crowd. I was like, well, Kevin, you could stand up too. It just is popular among Gator fans. So especially this time of year, the Gators getting ready to open their 2024 season on Friday. Mm-hmm. I love this time of year because I get to be a spectator, and I've been barred from covering games from our Gators Online readers. So I'm sticking to that. They don't want me there, so I'm not going to show up. But
you do have a very successful record when sitting on the berm, though.
Yes, or in general, as going as just a non-media member. So my boys love going out to Condren Family Ballpark. I know many Florida fans do as well this time of year. So between that and the softball team, the gymnastics, I mean, spring sports are awesome at UF. So, but baseball, they start on Friday, Nick, and a lot of news been coming out the last few days on the pitching rotations, player injuries. Kevin O'Sullivan held his first press conference this week. What are some of the top storylines that you're monitoring and kind of watching for as opening weekend?
Yeah, I think obviously, the bold big headline will be there's no Wyatt Langford, there's no Josh Rivera, Brandon Sproat, Hurston Waldrep. How do you replace those guys? We talked to some of the the players about who's stepping up into leadership roles. And I think Kevin O'Sullivan said it best. He says you really don't know who will be leaders on the team until you lose a weekend series, until you lose 3-4 games in a row. Who are the guys that step up when adversity hits to kind of lead the team? But replacing guys that, like, listen, there is no one-to-one replacement for Wyatt Langford. He's 21 years old and will be in the Rangers big league spring training camp. So it tells you what they think of him. But I think Florida's weekend rotation will be solid. Cade Fisher, who fans probably learned about later in the year as he stepped up big in the NCAA tournament for Florida, will start on Friday night. I had an exclusive interview with Liam Peterson. You can check that out. He is a guy, if you don't know the name, you will know very soon. One of the best pitchers, I think the best freshman pitcher I've seen since Brady Singer was on campus, and I don't say that lightly. A really, really talented young pitcher. And then some guy named Jack Caglione. Don't know if anyone's heard of him. Will resume his role on Sundays, as well as, listen, you're going to see him more than once a week. He's not just a starting pitcher. You'll see him playing first base and serving as a designated hitter as well. So the weekend rotation, I think, is solid. And one thing I wrote about yesterday was most times Florida goes into a season, they don't know who the closer will be. And I talked to Kevin O'Sullivan about that, and he said, listen, everyone talks about the Friday night guy. When you lose games consistently in the 8th inning and the 9th inning, that's demoralizing and can ruin a team and set them into losing streaks. To have a guy like Brandon Neely come back and step into that role from day one. I go back to 2017, and I wrote it in the story. Florida tried 6 different guys before they found Michael Byrne. And Michael Byrne's first 2 games, he blew saves against Tennessee and got saddled with the loss. But Florida does not win the national championship in 2017 without having Michael Byrne at the end of games. And I think that is a rare luxury that Florida has coming into the season, knowing that, hey, we have Brandon Neely, who was named the stopper of the year last year and stopper of the year preseason coming into this year at the back end of games. So that's going to be huge. And then moving on to the offense, obviously you have Jack Caglione back. I think Dale Thomas is a guy who we saw a little bit. Coastal Carolina transfer last year. He'll start as well. And then Luke Heyman. I think he's going to be a guy that steps, that has a big jump from freshman year to sophomore year. Obviously had the walk-off sack fly last year in Omaha, but a guy you'll see every day in the lineup, hitting right in the middle of there. And then Colby Shelton, who is the transfer from Alabama, hit 25 home runs as a freshman. So Florida's going to have a lot of power. My big questions for the Gators will be defense. Pitching and defense have been the staple for Kevin O'Sullivan. And there were a lot of questions about, can Colby Shelton play shortstop? He played third base last year at Alabama, and Kevin O'Sullivan acknowledged that. He said, he has proved to us that he can play it. He makes all the routine plays, but if you've gotten used to, and this is me talking now, not Kevin O'Sullivan, but if you've gotten used to the plays that Josh Rivera made, Colby Shelton doesn't have that same range. And what was routine, I think we're going to learn what was routine, or what we became accustomed to being routine plays at shortstop aren't actually routine. Those are very good plays that Josh Rivera just made look easy. Now, Colby, I think, will be good enough. But I just don't know that Florida has the same kind of defense that they did have. And then we had one question as I go back and it's right here at the bottom. Jacob Guy, a transfer from Liberty. One injury note that I did put out is Ty Evans, who started last year for Florida in right field. He was dealing with an injury all fall, missed most of fall, and then Ty Evans was hit with a pitch on the hand during an inter squad. So he's going to miss the first couple weeks of the season, which opens up a hole for Jalen Guy, who transferred in from Liberty. He's playing his super duper senior season, last year of eligibility for him. So Jalen Guy, I think, in my opinion, is a better defensive outfielder than Michael Robertson, who is a good outfielder. And the outfield will probably look on opening night with Tyler Shelnut in left or right. You could either flip-flop him left or right. Michael Robertson in the other corner, and Jalen Guy in center field, which when you have Guy and Robertson in the outfield, you're covering a lot of ground. That's a really good defense. Yeah, certainly an upgrade. Tyler Shelnut is doing what he needs to do for Florida, but he's an infielder. He's playing outfield because that's where they have an opening, and he's going to be one of your better bats. So, in summation, Zach, I think Florida hits a lot of home runs. I think they have a lot of potential. There's a lot of freshmen I think that they're going to end up depending on that you need to kind of pan out and live up to their potential and their expectations. But it's always a competitive team. Kevin O'Sullivan has never missed the NCAA tournament. They will not miss the NCAA tournament this year. And
going out on a limb there, Nick.
It'll be a fun season. I don't know, in my opinion, that this team is as good as they were last year. But last year they set a record for most wins ever. So it's not like I'm saying that Florida stinks. I just don't know that they're as good as they were last year. But it's February 15th, so there's a lot of time and a lot of games to be played. Zach, 66 games in 93 days from February 16th until the last game. I think it's against Georgia. And then that doesn't even include however many you play in Hoover, or however many you play in a regional, super regional, College World Series. It is a lot of games. So
what's the
goodbye to my wife as I spend 5 days a week for the next month at Contra Family Ballpark.
You got your PTO in. I tell you what, man, that like little window that you had between the end of football and baseball starting just went away so quick.
It goes quickly.
But look, a lot of high expectations for this Florida baseball team, ranked number 2 nationally by D1 Baseball, number 2 by College Baseball Central. League coaches very high on this team as well. They're picked to win the SEC East. So they get underway this Friday from Contra Family Ballpark. So make sure you are following Nick's coverage at Gators Online. And between that and UF Hoops in action this weekend, Nick and I will both be busy as the Mike White Bowl going down in Athens, Georgia, between Todd Golden and the former Florida men's basketball coach.
Florida did everything they could to lose that game against Georgia at home, but nobody out Mike White.
No, not at all. That was a crazy game, but also not an outlier for Florida, unfortunately. You see right there, if you're watching live on YouTube, that we've got it, that UF Hoops has won 6 of the last 7 games. But, man, they've also blown some leads in those games. And, it's like you're concerned, obviously, if you're Todd Golden, the staff, about some of these second half swoons and blowing double-digit leads and 20-point leads. However, if there's any consolation when the Gators do get in those predicaments, they regroup and they find a way to win. Which some could just completely, get shell shocked and not have the poise to kind of recover from something like that. Whether the games have gone into overtime, the Gators are 3-0 in overtime games, or whether they've just seen a large lead dwindle away and they got to find a way to regain it. They have shown the composure to do that, so you got to give them that credit. It was a tale of two halves against LSU. The Gators had their best shooting performance in any season, in any half this season, in that first half against LSU. And then the second half, the Tigers threw his own defense at Florida and gave them fits. The Gators really struggled down the stretch, failed to score some field goals, went 3 minutes without any points. And really from three-point range, it was their worst game of the season, a season low 4 3-pointers. But they found a way to win. They found a way to, as I said, regroup after the Tigers tied it up with under 2 minutes to go. And they head into now this game against Georgia, winners of 6 of their last 7 games, 17-7 overall, and 7-4 in league play. I had wrote in my last mailbag that I thought that 20 and 10 were the magic numbers for the Gators. They have never, since the tournament expanded to 64 teams, now it's 68, but since they expanded to 64, the Gators have never had 20 regular season wins and 10 league wins and missed the NCAA tournament. So that's never happened. And the Gators are now 3 wins away from reaching that threshold, and they need 3 wins with 7 left on the regular season schedule. So Georgia's a game that they should win. Playing at Alabama is going to be tough, but then they got games at home against Vanderbilt, Missouri. They travel to
too.
Vanderbilt as well.
That's a weird shooting gym.
What, Vanderbilt?
Yeah, at Vanderbilt. But
yeah, I mean, and again, they finally got over the hump, Nick, and got a win the other night against Texas A&M, but that's a game that Florida should be able to win. Just going into it. So we'll see what it looks like right now. Vanderbilt.
Mike White
that was their second win. Excuse me. They're 2-9.
Mike White never missed the tournament 2 years in a row. It looks like Todd won't make it 2 in a row this year.
No,
but it has been cool to see, because at some point I was watching some basketball games and I'm like, man, Todd Golden might just be like Mike White with spreadsheets. They have these long scoring droughts. They lose defensive lapses, letting big leads evaporate. I think like even last week in the win, Florida was up 20 at one point, and then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, okay, why is this a game?
Well, they didn't in the Auburn game. The Auburn game, they didn't score any field goals in the last 940. 940.
Long time.
It's a long time. They were up by 29, so it didn't matter. But it's just, if they weren't up by 29, that'd have been a problem.
Yeah. But to your credit, it is a testament to them that they're figuring out ways to win, whether it's big, close, comeback, front runner,
blow the
lead, find the lead. They're finding ways to win games. And listen, every win is created different, but they all count the same.
Yeah. And when you're maybe number 5, 6, 7 seed going into the tournament, nobody's going to care about these leads or things that got blown at the end. They're going to just look at the final results, and the Gators keep winning, and that's what matters most. And right now, Joe Lunardi has them projected as a number 7 seed. So they can keep winning, take care of the games that they're supposed to. They should be okay heading into March. So speaking of games, Nick, college football fans got a treat on Thursday. The trailer for College Football 25 was officially dropped by EA Sports, and we know it's real. I mean, if you follow David Waters, you've already known that this was coming. Shout out to Gator Dave, but it's now official. And I don't know about you, Nick. I don't play video games much anymore, but I will be playing that game.
I just got a new Xbox for Christmas, so I've been back on my game. Been back on my games. Was big on the EA golf game. Interesting. I think Denard Robinson was the last cover athlete. Do you go Michigan again since they're the champions? I think Nick Saban, if he signs off, is the obvious cover athlete, cover coach, cover personality, face. But I can't tell you the number, not even hours, days, weeks, months. If those games tracked time played throughout middle school, high school, through 2014, I have spent years of my life with a controller in my hand, running dynasties, road to glories,
recruiting.
And I think they're adding the transfer portal and NIL. These are all rumors that are in the game, but like, how realistic do we make the game? Am I losing my strength coordinator the week before spring ball? What is happening?
Did you used to update the roster yourself manually?
100%.
Before you could go online and grab somebody else's roster in those amazing days, Nick and I would be going on there and actually putting in the names. As did all of you. I know you did.
Spend 3 hours just to update your roster, and then the roster of other guys, so that you could see like Greg McElroy, his name instead of QB 14 Alabama.
So we won't have to do that now, though. The name should be there, right?
So what they're doing is EA is offering $500 for athletes to sign up, and they'll get $500 just for allowing their name, number. I mean, EA's not going to do like face scans like they do for Madden, but make the player look like them, make the player look like them, and use their height, weight, high school stats, hometown stuff like that. And then obviously other guys will be, negotiated with, that's going to be guys that have pull and can bring more eyes to this. Listen, for the sickos, for the people, especially our age, like we grew up on like Nintendo and then graduated to like Dreamcast, PlayStation, Xbox. This is a gigantic win. I don't care. You don't need I don't need commercials. I just need a date. When is the date where I can start playing this game? Don't waste your money on marketing. I'm in. Just tell me the date.
Yeah, no. This is gonna be the easiest sell that they've ever had for a video game.
Like I don't need. I don't want to throw anyone out there. Like, you don't need to pay an athlete to tell me to buy the game. The game's already purchased. In my mind, that money has already been subtracted from my bank account because the game is already purchased, Zach.
Well, and think about it, you're going to get all the fans like us that grew up on that nostalgia, the Chris Leaks of the world, who was in line with me at Best Buy the day that the game came out, waiting to buy it. You're going to get all that crowd of folks in their 30s and older. And then you're going to get the whole young generation that never got to experience it, or they've only been playing the 14 or 15 game, the last one that came out.
Bro, we used to so like they don't even do discs now. Like my Xbox doesn't even have like a place to put a disc in, so everything I'm like downloading offline. But we used to be at GameStop at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. to get in line for the midnight release of NCAA of Madden. So I'm gonna miss that. Shout out to GameStop. Hope the stock is still going to the moon. But
they would run. They would run out if they were still disc. Stores would run out. They'd sell out.
Yeah,
easy.
Yeah, you had to pre-order. And if you didn't pre-order, if you were dumb and didn't pre-order, you would get in line hoping somebody who did pre-order didn't show up, so that you could get your game. And then you'd have to go home and you would start your road to glory at 12:30 p.m. or 12:30 in the morning after you got your hard copy EA Sports NCAA football. It won't be called NCAA. They haven't signed on with the NCAA, so it's just EA Sports College Football 25. Well,
NCAA might not be running college football for much longer, Nick. So that was some smart decision making on EA Sports' part. Shout out to Brandon for this comment. The game will have a running back transferring at halftime.
Shout out to Trevor Etienne.
Shout out to Lorenzo Lingard.
Shout out to Lorenzo Lingard.
I think there's a couple running backs that have done that.
Shout out to DeMarcus Bowman.
No. Excuse me. My apologies to Lorenzo Lingard. I think that was Darius Lemons that did that.
That was Darius Lemons. That was like.
It was after the game. It was after they won at halftime, but he definitely
like the showers weren't, like the floors of the showers weren't even wet yet, and Darius Lemons was like, "Yo, I'm out of here." Yeah, shout out to Darius Lemons, sour lemons.
Yeah. So yeah, that will be a cool feature that they'll have within the game portal, and it's going to be cool to see it drop. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to baseball opening this Friday in Condren Family Ballpark and all of Nick's coverage this season. Certainly looking forward to the Mike White Bowl on Saturday, and looking forward to what Napier does with his openings now on staff. We'll be tracking it as always at Gators Online. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe here on the channel. If you're not subscribed,
one more time, Zach. Again, down below, if you're watching on YouTube, www.gatordefensefund.com. And I know it is Gator Giving Day, so if you're feeling in the mood, you can donate to Florida Victorious and help with their NIL efforts at Florida.
No doubt. And shout out to everybody that joined live and commented in the comment section. We appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, we'll be back next week with a new episode to see how the first week of baseball went, if the Gators keeping their win streak going, and if any new staff movement has happened. So for Nick Del Torre, I'm Zach Alberti. We'll see you guys next week.